this computer, and we are recording. Barb, the floor is yours.
Yay, and can you see me and hear me? Because my screen looks frozen.
Your screen is frozen, but we can hear you just fine.
Okay, I really love how it's frozen on that awesome expression that I have. Thank you very much. I don't know what that is. I'm going to unplug my direct Ethernet, and I'm going to plug it back in and see if that'll do it.
Okay.
Or it might have happened since you made me a co-host, Greg, so maybe take me off co-host for now.
Okay.
I don't know how to do that. That might work. So that people don't have to stare at that face. Oh my God.
Let's see. Withdraw co-host.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Okay. You're welcome.
Right,
and then I'm also gonna let me see. I'm also going to spotlight your video. There we go. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And this is one of my favorite topics ever of all time. I've done so many ELIs, I can't even tell you. And I was having a lot of the same kinds of issues that you all were having where, and Greg, I'm seeing a black screen, so I don't know if it's working. Can you guys see me?
You're still frozen with your smile, so you're fine, but we can hear you just fine.
That's fine. Okay, cool. So, so with the ELI, I just felt, I just couldn't get connected to it at all. And so I started playing with how to look at it differently. So today what I want to do is really go through some of the things that I talked about in my, in the little promo there, which was, hey, you know, if your debriefs are taking too long, I'm going to show you some incredible shortcuts. If you feel like you're not getting the depth of information, I'm going to show you a couple quick things to really look for more depth to share with your client. And then if your debrief is feeling too impersonal. So the first thing we're going to do is just start with the idea that, you know, in class when we learned to look at the primary and the secondary energy levels of a client, we were looking at their energetic profile and at their energetic stress reaction. So what I'd like to do is share that what we're going to do is look at the top 3, not just the top 2. And by looking at the top 3, what we're doing is you're getting that background information that is really helping you to understand. You know what, Greg? I'm getting a lot of chats that it's only black screen. So I'm wondering if I shouldn't check back out and then come back in.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So, you know, do your song and dance and I'll be right back.
No problem. I will. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, everybody. So while Barb's getting logged back in, I will try and highlight her video. And I think you might be able to do the same with the presenter when she gets logged back in. So don't worry about that. She does have a document that I will be able to share with you when it's time. So you'll be good. You won't miss anything, I promise.
Cool. I'm here. Thank you. All right. Okay. Can you see me now?
Hold on.
Verizon.
There, you're moving again. Okay,
yeah.
So I'm going to highlight. Let me see what happens because I'm going to, let's see. I want to spotlight your video. There you are. Okay, so you're front and center on my screen now. So
cool.
You got it.
You know I love to be front and center of everything. Okay, so.
I love it. Yes, yes.
Be real. Okay. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about taking, instead of just the top 2 primary and secondary levels in the energetic profile and the energetic stress reaction, we're going to look at the top 3. So that third number gives you such colorful background information. So I want to start, and I don't know, you may have had trainers that have told you to do this. This is really just something I started doing, and I would kind of bring it into the training sometimes. But it has really helped me in when I'm looking at their chart. And this is a great thing to do, especially when you don't have a lot of time to prep the debrief. So I want to start with just one example off the top of my head. We're going to just write these down. We're going to start with somebody who has the ELI of primary 3, secondary 4, tertiary 5. And in their stress reaction, doesn't matter. It could be anything. Could be, it's usually 1-2, some kind of 1-2 combination.
Right.
Right. So we'll go with 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now, what do we already know? So I'd like to open up to people. What do we already know about this person that we are prepped with and can share with them right away? If we know that they're 3, 4, 5 or the 1, 2, 3, what is the main thing about their energetic profile that we're learning about them? So either in the chat room or if you want to raise your hand and talk.
Toleration and caregiving. They are tolerating a lot.
Passion, no.
Okay.
Right.
And also just think of it more globally. What do you remember about the different levels? So that you have the odd numbered levels and the even numbered levels. Anybody remember that?
No.
No?
Numbers are emotional.
Yes.
Odd numbers are more cognitive.
Yes. So the mental levels are 1, 3, 5. And that means somebody from 1, 3, 5, they're coming from a mental place. They're utilizing their head. They're in their head space. They're thinking a lot.
Interesting.
Yep.
Hold on.
And I'm going to have you guys mute yourself when, if I'm not asking for your participation, if you could, because I know if you're like me, you're talking to yourself while you're learning.
Yeah. Let me mute all again, and then I'll pull you off of mute.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Hold on. Hold on. Hold on, Barb.
Barb, you're still on mute.
Yeah, unmute yourself. I can't do it from my screen.
I'm sorry.
There you go. There you go.
Did you enjoy that pantomime? You guys are really great at reading lips. Okay, so, wow. Yeah, so 1, 3, 5, mental levels, you're coming from that thinking place. People might be stuck in their heads a little bit. They view the world from an intellectual place in general, good problem solvers, etc. 2, 4, 6, this is emotional levels. So you're looking at the world through an emotional lens. And that might mean that you're sensitive to other people's emotions. It might mean you might have better facility with emotions, not necessarily, but you see the world through your emotions. Now 7 is all of them. So 7, as we know, is observing and experiencing at the same time. So we're in our bodies and we're up above our bodies at the same time with 7. So when we see somebody with 3, 4, 5, what do we know already? What we know is they're seeing the world from a little bit more mental standpoint, which works for us as a coach because they have that 4 in between there. So they've got some emotions going on, but they're coming from a mental standpoint. It also might tell us they might be stuck in their heads a little bit. Not as much as if it was 3, 5, 4, for example. So that third number gives us such a colorful background. It's like DNA that gives you that extra information. Now, 3, 4, 5 is very different from someone who might be 3, 4, 6. Right? Now we're going into the more emotional range. We're going into a little bit higher consciousness. Also very different from someone who has 3, 4, 2, obviously. So they've got that 2 in the background there. So that's giving you extra information. So all of this is we can put this together. So I want to go through another one where, let's see, I'm going to give an example of 6, 5, 3, okay, 6, 5, 3, with a energetic stress reaction of 1, 2, 5. Right away, we know this person has already done a fair amount of quote-unquote work on themselves. They might be exploring consciousness. Or simply that they're just full of ideas. They're They love to see the big picture. They're good at synthesizing information and also could be very good at putting it into action. So their self-mastery is going to be a little bit higher than your average bear. And they have some intuitive abilities, which they may or may not be using. We don't know until we look at the questions more thoroughly there, right? So you're kind of keeping that in mind. They're definitely an opportunist. They see life as a great opportunity. There's optimism going on there. They probably like connection, but it could be a connection with ideas. Because we have 6 followed by 2 mental levels, they might be all about the connection. For them is that popcorn popper of ideas, not necessarily a people connection, right? And especially with 6, level 6, I call that the level where when I see that in coaches or people who are on an exploratory path of really expanding themselves spiritually, when I see primary 6, it can indicate to me that, or even it doesn't have to be primary, it could be secondary or tertiary, that they're kind of going into what I call their den of Zen. And they might be using Zen as a way to escape. So especially if there's a 3 in those top 3. So check in with that. 6 doesn't always mean that they're enlightened. It just means they have a lot of inspiring ideas, etc. Everybody with me so far, or anybody who's not? And then I'm looking at the chat room here.
Yeah, looks like we're good.
Okay.
So one thing is, so primary is 4, secondary and tertiary are exactly the same score, 3 and 5.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
How's that work?
Okay, so primary 4, secondary, tertiary, exactly the same, 3 and 5. So remember, when they're the same, we always take the lower level first. So that person is going to come out with energy of 4, 3, 5. 4, 3, 5. Now, they're neck and neck, right? So what can happen is somebody is leading with their emotions or leading with their perceptions of the world through an emotional lens, but they might toggle back and forth easily between just coping, I just have to cope and get by in the world, level 3, or putting things into action. I'm really making it happen. I'm looking at opportunities. I'm making it a we-win. And so the client themselves, sometimes when I see tied, or even I've seen 3 or they're all, I call it a horse race. The client may kind of present with sometimes feeling confused as to how they feel about something or how they're going to react to a situation. They may say something like, yeah, sometimes I don't know. I just don't even know what to do. And I'm like a deer in headlights sometimes because they have an ability to move quickly in between the levels. So does that make sense? So
yeah.
It looks like it does. Okay, great. All right. So one more comment about the 653 for a moment, which is that, and I'm looking at my notes here that I've made for myself, which is, the emotions are there, but I'll guess that someone with 653 energy, that the emotions maybe don't come out until they're really stressed. So this might be somebody that suppresses their emotions because they're coming from the mental place. And in 6, a lot of times it's like, we go, no, I'm just going to go with the flow in life. I don't want to deal it. They're trying to stay above the fray of emotions. So you want to get curious about that with them in the ELI. So it might sound like, so I'm just wondering, so what are your general thoughts? Ask a thinking question. What are your thoughts about emotions? How comfortable are you with emotions? What would happen if you were to show your emotions at work? Something like that to start to explore where they are with it. Now, when we see primary 6 and 5, 653 like this, and in their stress reaction, it's starting with a 1, and depending on what the ratio is, something's going on in their life that shoots them down to level 1, obviously. So level 1's the default, level 2 is the secondary. They're going to go to level 1 before they get mad. So they're going to dial it back. They're going to maybe avoid, step back, whatever it is. But anytime you see someone with a high anabolic in their energetic profile, get very curious about this. This is where, start to I wonder how comfortable they are with feelings. What was it like in their home feeling about anger or having tantrums? Were tantrums allowed? That's where we can explore that a little bit. The other thing I'd love to know is, what is their resiliency level? Is it high? Is it low? It's not as high as one would expect with this energetic profile, because that level 5 in their tertiary energetic stress reaction might be minimal. The potential's there. So get curious about that as well. Okay, so how are we doing with questions here, Greg? Anything else?
No, we're good.
Yeah, okay.
Everybody's just tuned in and soaking it up.
Okay, cool. So now let's take this 653. Let's talk about the difference between a 654 or a 652. Now, what's the difference? 654, immediately something is different. What is it? If anybody would like to, share or, emotional, right? So more emotions, absolutely. So exactly. So now you've just gotten this extra awesome information. So with 654, this is somebody who is obviously very capable of putting their life into action. They might experience sometimes their thoughts. They might have so many thoughts or so many ideas that they might have a hard time putting them into action. Because with level 5 as a secondary, sometimes it's like deer caught in headlights because there's so many opportunities. So being able to anchor down again in their emotions when you're coaching them can really help. But in your energetic, in your ELI, you now have a little bit background information to go from. So you guys, we haven't even delved into the questions yet, right? And you have this going on. So I see a question to clarify. Does that mean to explore whether 653 with 135 may be suppressing emotions that they aren't even aware of? Yeah. And if somebody is primary in their energetic stress reaction, primary 1, secondary 3, tertiary 5, they are not comfortable with level 2 emotions. They're judging themselves or having idea that quote unquote negative emotions are bad. And of course, as coaches, we know there are no negative emotions. So, one of the greatest things we can do is validate the living lights out of them. Wow, it makes sense then. Ask the question about, what are your thoughts about anger? And, how does that come through for you? And what was it like in your household growing up? Those are just a bunch of different questions you can ask. And then really getting to, okay, so, it makes sense, and do a validation there. It makes sense that you would choose to step back, hide a little bit from that, because in your past you've had difficult, experiences with it. So no wonder you're going to struggle with showing some emotions that are seen in level 2, like anger, like resistance, like micromanaging or controlling. That makes perfect sense given, and then you're going to repeat whatever the situation was for them. And then, so our job, and we can, so we're not really coaching them during the ELI, but the way that we're coaching them is through exploratory questions. So we're just doing the exploratory part of coaching. And then that sets you up for the perfect thing to be able to say, so when we're coaching together, that's absolutely something we can explore further. Now you're getting them anticipating and excited about doing that. And if they're potential clients, certainly they're really on the hook now going, oh my God, yes, I want to look at that because this is holding me back at work or, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I see some nodding heads. This is
Yeah.
good.
We have a question about how resilience shows up in the ELI.
Oh yeah, so there's some specific questions for that. So let me go to one that I have pulled up here. And let me just, in level 3, that's where obviously it's the coping question is number 24. When things go wrong by me, I can easily come up with a plan to make things better. When they have a long bar at completely true or very true, you can actually speak to their resilience in their ELI and say, the assessment shows me that you seem to be someone who is quite resilient with any situation that comes your way. And then what gets paired with that within this level 3, because again, we want to use interplay between questions, is number 59. I'm generally an up person because that's showing optimism. And number 66, I always try to see the good aspects. So anyone who has a very true or completely true with number 59 and number 66 is in general going to be more resilient because their perspective of the world is coming from an optimistic place, right? Now, the counterpoint to that, fun, is that they may also be finding themselves caught on a gerbil wheel of tolerance. Because they're able to come back from a situation over and over again, and because they have such positive attitude all the time, they're never getting mad enough to make a change. And you could speak to that as well, especially if their level 2 is low in their energetic express, and I'm talking low, 25% or less, or 20% or less. Okay. So that can be really, really important. Okay. And then let me just see the one about, the situations. So another one about kind of a mild question about resilience is level 3, number 3. Regardless of what others say or do, I take responsibility for how I feel. So that's showing you they are taking responsibility for their lot in life, or what have you, and that may speak to their resilience as well. Okay, question here is, have there been studies to validate whether or not a professional coach's success is subject to mental or emotional points of view? Good question. I would actually pose that to iPEC because they're always doing different research studies, and that could be one that would be really cool to explore. I don't know of any right now, but that would be fun to do a little Google search on and see. Yeah, very cool. So a lot of times I'll see students that are coming from a very, very mental place and they struggle with connecting with the emotions in the client, but it's absolutely something that can be learned, and they can, learn how to connect with those emotions and all of that. Vice versa, a coach who has a lot of emotional perspective or level, if there's a lot of emotion going on for them, can get caught up in the emotions of the client, and they're lacking the boundary. So they'll end up feeling tired or slimed. I call it getting slimed. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It just means you got the stuff like Ghostbusters, you got hit with the emotional goo and you don't know how to unstick it off of yourself. And there's a technique that I teach called emotional shielding that we would have to do another time to help empathic coaches protect their boundary space. So that's just my personal research. Okay, interplay between 4, 6, and 3. Yeah, sure. So already with 4, 6, 3, again, we already know that this person is definitely coming from an emotional perspective. And that 3 behind them tells me that, as opposed to a 5, for example, in their tertiary, that 3 behind them tells me that they are probably, at a point where their emotions will bring them down where they feel like they have to cope. And, you know, they might be struggling with the emotional piece sometimes where they can't really, not regulate the emotions, but can't pull out of them, or emotions stick with them a lot. And so they're going down to 3 to try to cope with that, rather than someone with 4, 6, 5, where they would have a different way of looking at a situation. Okay, so some more questions. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry that iPEC hasn't been responsive. Yeah. I hope that helped my answer in relation to emotional versus mental. But success all around. It's all how you want to, it's expanding our repertoire and our ability to connect with the clients, really. Okay, so one thing about question 23, you said that shows resilience. Oh, no, it wasn't question 23. Did I say 23?
No, you said 24, I believe.
Okay.
You said
It's
24, 59, and 66.
Yeah, all in level 3. Yep. Let me go back, because what is the question 23 is in level 2. Very few people meet my expectations. That is not so much about resilience. That's a perspective of, that's a judgment question, actually, right? Because you're having high expectations and you're judging the person as meeting them. Are they good enough to fit into my standards? So that's what that one is. Okay. Oh no, that's cool. Coaching someone who's primary 3, secondary 3, tertiary 4. Yep. We see it, you know, it happens sometimes. So anytime you see primary 1 or 2, in iPEC, what we would teach when I was a trainer is, you know, don't coach them, you know, they need therapy or whatever. That's not always true. We don't know. This client might be in a temporary situation. Remember, the ELI is situational. It's a snapshot in time. So someone with a primary 1, they maybe just got terrible news. We don't know. Or it could be chronic. We don't know until we really open it up and look at what the things are and maybe do the debrief with them. So what we're going to do is you've got to find the things that you can, some anabolic elements about them. What I would do is speak about those first, instead of going through level 1 and describing level 1 and all of that, because you're going to lose them and they're going to get depressed and use up a whole Kleenex box. So, so the fact that they have a secondary 3 tells us, okay, they can go into coping mode, even if it's at a lower level 3. And tertiary 4, yep, this person's going to be sensitive to emotions. So they're going to have a higher level of sensitivity and be more vulnerable to going into depression or getting bummed out. So, you know, it's just a matter of doing a whole lot of validation, finding out what are the questions about that. Their level 1 might be all about guilt, might not be about depression at all. Might be all about number 8. I feel as though I have a constant weight on my shoulders. So it doesn't necessarily have to have that feeling of being, you know, depressed. It might just simply be a feeling of powerlessness in a different way. Now, if level 1, number 29, I feel like I am lost in the crowd. If that is a longerish bar, now you're talking, that's a self-esteem question. And now their level 1 is enough that their self-esteem is getting compromised. Okay. So absolutely do the debrief and then see how it goes and see if coaching is appropriate and go from there. All right. I'm loving these questions, you guys. This is fun. We can just keep going with some of these. What about, let's see, so where am I? Could you please speak to 241? Woo-hoo! That's a fun one. Okay. Don't we love our level 2s? Come on. All right. So here's the thing. I'm going to give you another little shortcut. Anytime you see 4 and 1 together, that's like a wounded helper. So it's usually you're going to see primary 4, secondary 1, and then whatever else the third is, 3, 5, whatever, 6. When we see 4 with a 1, wounded helper means they themselves have wounds that they're working on that they're trying to heal. And in healing it, they're reaching out and trying to help others. It's kind of the way they're trying to learn for themselves. It's also a great way when you're reaching out to help others. It's a great way to ignore your own stuff. Let's get my business all up in somebody else's business so I don't have to look at my business, okay? So I call that wounded helper. 4-2 is your martyr, meaning that I'm doing everything for everybody else and nobody's doing anything for me, and they're getting pissed off about it. So we can work a little bit more with the 4-2 because they've got some energy there, some oomph that we can coach them with. The 4-1, with both of these, it's just a whole lot of validation all the time. Now your question was 2-4-1. They're leading with the 2, the secondary is 4, the tertiary is 1. Now they've had it. They've been helping so much. They are pissed off. They are resentful. They are having to micromanage and control to feel like they have control in their world. And they're also going to have a high level of sensitivity, and they probably have been vilified for that. So, that's where you really want to validate them a lot and find out what that 2 is about. Start off with, wow, you've got a lot of this level 4 in you, where it really shows that you're somebody that, and their concern questions might be short, but you can still, wow, with this level 4, that tells me that in general, you're a person who sees the world through emotions. And I'm going to guess that you've been working hard to help others and not getting the same back. How true is that? And put it out there. They can say, no, it's not true. It doesn't matter, but I'll guess that it's going to be very true. And then you're just going to be asking, get curious. What is that 2 about? So be looking in the level 2 questions, what's going on for them. Is it the fighting stuff, all the fighting questions, which are level numbers 2. The fighting questions are 2 and 52 and 51 are your big fighting questions. Is it the trust question, number 16? So you're finding out what is it, and then looking at the 1, what's going on in their 1, and being able to speak to that. So you can absolutely do the ELI debrief, and you can coach them too, because it might be situational, or this might be something chronic that's been going on for a while, but you don't know until you get in it. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, that's great. The next one was a 3-5-7, where 5 and 7 are the same.
Yeah. Okay. So same thing here now. So it's very unusual. Let me just tell you straight up, very unusual to see level 7 in someone who is not a coach, or, usually this is like you see it in yogis, coaches in general. Okay. I do a lot of corporate coaching. Very rare to see level 7 all up in there, but I do have a client I'm coaching who's a veterinary doctor, runs her own practice, and she's very into yoga and very into an enlightenment path. And she did have 7 in her tertiary. So it's unusual, but again, you're going to always take the 5 first. So they're 3-5-7. So what do we know? I mean, mental all the way here. So this is, again, somebody who is not necessarily comfortable in the emotional realm. They might be somebody that this is an adaptive behavior that they've learned to use to be able to stay out of the emotional fray. Emotions might be really scary for them. They might have grown up in a house that, people were fighting all the time, or that emotions were punished or not rewarded at the very least, or not okay in the home. So get curious about why is that. Now, they might be straight up just a thinker. They're an intellectual. They're coming from a thinking place. That's all cool. I'd be very curious, and I'd want to ask them, how come it's not 5-3-7? What's going on that you're in this level 3 primary place that's keeping you at this lower level, where you're, how come you're not functioning at a higher place when you have 5 and 7 in your upper 3. And so that tells me that they're just, maybe a high level 3, and but they're not necessarily taking action in an active way. They're just going along with life and being resilient about it. So again, getting curious about that.
Esther is asking about a 3, 5, and 6, and on their stress, they're a 2-1.
Oh, great. Okay. 2-1. Oh my gosh. That's fantastic. I love seeing 2 as as the default in the energetic stress reaction. Oh my gosh. You can move them so much more quickly when you're coaching, right? Because they have access to it, and anger mobilizes us, which is fantastic. And remember, level 2 isn't just about anger. There can be resentment, there can be micromanaging, controlling, resistance, all kinds of things going on. So just make sure in your debrief, you guys learned this already, I'm going to say it again, use the third person when you're talking about their level 2 energy. Do not say, what I'm seeing in the assessment is that you have a tough time with whatever it is, anger, or, you're resisting. Say, people with a lot of the level 2, like I see here, will normally experience X, Y, Z. So use the third person or they're going to feel defensive. The other thing in secondary 1, that's okay. I'd look at the ratios. What are the percentages on those? And again, primary 3, they're just kind of living life. Like, don't rock my boat, man. Come on. And if they have 6 in their tertiary, how come they're at 3 in their primary? Like, I'd want to know that 5 and 6 are quite high. What's going on there? So they might be trying to ride in the den of Zen in their level 6 to stay above the fray of emotions. Even though their primary or their default in the energetic stress reaction is level 2. That might be about controlling, not about anger. So we don't know.
Nice. Karen is asking, I think a lot of people are going to ask about this, how you're relating the questions from the assessment with these energy levels. When you're saying like question 24's resilience backed up by 59 and 6, how did you get there?
That's what I do in the class that I teach, which is Art of the ELI, because I started really getting curious about these questions. A lot of the questions will have a primary and hello, sorry about that, guys. A primary and a second. Oh, I love that freeze on my face. Fantastic. I don't know how to fix that, you guys. So, wow. Okay, sorry. So what was I saying? So with the ELI questions, what I do is I just started getting curious. So there's a primary and a secondary meaning behind some of these. So for example, let me show you. In question number in level 2. Number 37. If someone does something wrong by me, I can't let it go. There are 2 things going on there. One is they're viewing that someone did something wrong by them. That's interesting. That's their perspective of the world. If you were living at level 6 or level 5, you would not think that. You would just think, they're fine. They're just doing what they're doing. It has nothing to do with me. The second part of that is I can't let it go. So that means that there's, they're hanging on to resentment. So that just started getting me curious, and I went through each of the questions to, not each of them, but most of them, to kind of get a read. And that's what I kind of teach in this class that I do. And then I also do an interplay between the levels. So some questions will go with other questions. So let me give you an example of that. You guys, we have to do something about that. I don't know how to change it.
Maybe if you turn off your video and then turn it back on.
Okay, let's do it. It says hi, stop video. Okay, fantastic.
There you go.
Oh,
there. Okay.
Great. Okay.
And then turn it on. There you go.
You're so smart, Greg. Oh my gosh. You're the smartest. Okay. So I'm going to show you an example here of interplay between things. So if you turn to any ELI, doesn't matter, Level 3, number 52. Okay, that is a forgiveness question. We know that because it says straight up, let me read it. When people hurt me, I quickly forgive them, okay? Now, that's great information. You can create questions around that. If their bar is short, again, that's another tip I want to give you, you guys, is in the anabolic levels, look for what's missing. That's going to give you great information. Not only are you looking for the longest bars, look for the shortest bars. You're going to get a ton of information doing that. And I see this a lot in level 3, where they'll have completely true, very true, all the way down. And then number 52 is like completely untrue or somewhat untrue, right? That tells you they're struggling with forgiveness. So great, you can ask, what's holding you back from forgiveness? Okay, that's good. But let's take it to a level deeper, shall we? And that is to look at level 2, number 37 as well. These two questions go together. Level 2, number 37 says, if someone does something wrong by me, I can't let it go. Now we've just gone into another layer about resentment. Not only are they lacking forgiveness, but they're holding on to it for God knows how long. Oh my God. Then let's look at another one that adds even more information for us. We're going to go to level 1 and look at number 50. So these three go together because look at level 1, number 50. It says, I often replay events in my mind, wishing I'd acted differently. And I call that the rumination question. They're mentally looping around and around over and over. Well, guess what? If someone did them wrong, they're looping around over and over and over. You get the picture of what I'm saying here. And they're not forgiving. Now we've just deepened our knowledge about them. So we're not only talking about forgiveness, but we're talking about resentment, digging their heels in, hanging on to it, thinking about it often. Now your question for them can be, the curious question is going to be, who do you need to forgive? Bam. And they're sitting there going, how do you know I need to forgive somebody? Are you kidding me? I haven't been able to forgive my brother for 10 years or whatever it is. You can then ask, well, how does that hold you back in your life? Okay, so, and you don't have to coach them around it. And then you can say, that is absolutely something that we will cover in coaching. Because according to the assessment, this is really showing that it's, this is holding you back, okay? So can you guys see how that just adds that layer of depth there? I'm hoping that makes sense. Yeah, somebody asked, how many ELI debriefs did I have to get to this level?
Everybody's thinking that question.
Okay, so here's the thing about this. This is what's cool about this. Again, why reinvent the wheel? It took me about 100 to get here because I was doing this all organically. And when I would debrief coaches, now and again, I'd get a coach who wanted me to coach them, and they'd hire me to coach them. And of course, I'm going to do it my way. And they're like, oh my God, can you teach me how you did the ELI that way? That I realized I have to create a structure to be able to teach it back to someone. So I created these forms and I make it all structured. And so you don't have to go through 100 debriefs to learn it. It's like you learn it instantly and then it's just practice. And maybe you have to do about, 5 debriefs, maybe to start to really see the patterns. I've had students tell me they see the patterns immediately, but it's just practice over and over again. The beauty is once you take my class, you can repeat the class anytime for free forever. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, so somebody asked about the class. I said you'll cover that at the end. Somebody also, it was Ian, was asking, could you just talk about the 4-3-6 real quick, and then I'll move down the list to the other questions.
Yeah, I'd love to. Okay, so 4-3-6, anything, okay, so let me just find that in the chat. Yeah, could you possibly ask about 4-3-6? Absolutely. So with our primary level 4 people, people with primary level 4. Anytime there's primary level 4, we already know they've got access to emotions, but we don't know how it's playing out yet. Is it playing out with a lot of sensitivity? Is it playing out with they are healthy in their emotions? Is it playing out where they're struggling, they're feeling too many emotions all the time, or they're getting vilified for their emotions? We don't know. So now when we see a secondary 3 and a tertiary 6, it tells us, wow, I'm wondering now maybe they're going in and into their 3, they're having to go down to 3 just to cope and kind of rationalize, and they've been told their whole life they have to rationalize. So then they'll bounce into 6 to escape the den of Zen, into the den of Zen, so that they don't feel the emotions. No, I'm just going with the flow of life. I'm not really feeling it on that level. So remember that, yes, level 6 is a feelings level, but it also is really more about almost like feelings in your head, the intuition, the synthesis of the information, the idea factory. So the emotions are not as potent as they are in levels 2 and 4. In level 2, very fiery. In level 4, also fiery with love and caring and compassion. In level 6, we've got joy, which isn't exactly colorful, right? Joy is just that permanent sense of inner joy. So be thinking about that. Then when you look at their energetic stress reaction, I'm going to guess this person is going to be 1, 2, 3. That's just my guess off the top of my head. Jan, maybe you can let us know what it was. But if it's 1, 2, 3, we want to see what is the ratio between their 1 and 2. So let me give you another little tip about the energetic stress reaction. Okay, I'm sorry I'm bouncing around. You guys are asking great questions. Are we good?
Yeah, they're loving it. And,
okay.
And I think this is what they want. They said, don't worry about your video. They're furiously writing notes and not even looking.
Okay, awesome. Okay. All right. So let's talk about a level 1 and 2. And Greg, this is where I would like to share the screen. May I do that? I don't know if I'm still a co-host.
Oh, no. Remember, we turned your co-host off, but I have that, Eli. Do you want me to share it?
If you would, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to share screen.
Yeah, and for you guys, I'm a visual learner, so it helps. If that's okay, let's do it.
There we go.
All right, awesome. So Greg, here's what I'm going to do is have you under when you click up at the top to do the little, there's a little red, and then if you click on that, there's not highlight, there should be another one that lets you be like, that's it, you've got a cursor, that's good.
Okay.
Your little circle cursor, perfect. So take it down into 1 and 2 in this energetic stress reaction, perfect. Check out that ratio difference, you guys. Level 1 is long. Yeah, look at that. 46.7% versus 16.2%. So another quick shortcut you can do. Add those two together. What do we have if we do quick math? 47 and 16 is 63. Mm-hmm. So now the way that you're saying it to the client is, the assessment really shows us the way that you respond to stress. And what it's actually showing is that it's very normal for you when you are under stress and perceiving that a situation is stressful, that you have about 63% of your energy plummets down into this catabolic place that's mostly about feeling powerless. Okay, so now you just wrapped up all the information. They go, wow, 68%. Okay, now you have somewhere to go. But another thing that you're going to see here, look at that level 1 versus level 2. And you can even point this out to them. Now, this is just for you coaches. Let me just say this to you. When I see level 2 being less than 50% of level 1, they're struggling they're struggling and judging themselves about their level 2. They are not comfortable with anger. They're not comfortable with their level 2. and they're suppressing their emotions. This is just my experience of doing hundreds upon hundreds of debriefs. And every time I've ever said this to a client, they're always like, oh my God, how do you know that? How do you know that? And that's because I just started seeing this, when 2 is half as much as level 1. You guys with me?
Mm-hmm.
Are we good, Greg? Okay.
Yes.
So that's something that we want to pay attention to. And so that leads to the conversation about, get curious about that. So what are your thoughts about this level 2 stuff? You read a little bit about it in the report. Yes, there can be anger, but there can also be things like resentment or feeling like you have to control things a lot because, what do you think of that? And get their thoughts on it, get their feelings on it, see how they're doing with it, okay? So that's an interesting one there. But let me go back to Jan's was the primary 4, because Greg, let's see. So let's look at this is a sample client. If you go up into the energetic profile and highlight level 6 is the primary with 22.4%. Very rare to see a level 6 primary who's not a coach generally. Level 3, 17.9% is the secondary. Tertiary is level 5, tied with level 7. Okay, so what we already know, so they're 6, 3, 5. So we already know that, I already know she's escaping into the den of Zen because look at her level 1 is so long here. If you're really living at 3, at 5, at 6, 3, 5, how come you're going into powerlessness? The other thing, Greg, is if you scroll to the satisfaction survey, this is like so amazing. Okay, check it out. Go all the way down, all the way to the satisfaction. Yep, check it out. There we go. Oh, you had it, yep.
Yep, it keeps bouncing here. Hold on.
What you'll see is that you'll see a bunch of long bars in her satisfaction survey. And in that, go the other way, and in that,
it doesn't
it's hilarious to be the third party. It's like I'm the backseat driver here.
6. One more. I'm getting there. Okay, I'm getting there.
You got it, baby. All right.
There
Yeah.
we go. We did
All right,
it.
check it out. Normally, when you see this kind of satisfaction survey, you're like, hey, she's doing pretty well. I mean, she's only moderately satisfied in some things. Obviously, there's some huge dissatisfaction in certain areas. But then, okay, that highest one is health and wellness. Great. But the way that iPEC designed the ELI is that you don't see what's missing. So, Greg, take your highlighter and just kind of circle this whole right-sided area that is blank. Yeah, this whole thing that's blank. What do you notice that we're missing here?
Satisfaction.
Yeah, there's no complete completely satisfied here. So we don't always think to look at that, but that gives us tons of information. So normally what we would see is almost every person that I have ever had that has primary level 3, you will see no completely satisfieds in their satisfaction survey, or maybe one. And that is classic. People with primary level 3, hey man, I'm just trying to survive here. Do not rock this boat. I'm perfectly happy being only somewhat or very satisfied. Don't mess with me right now, okay? However, with our sample client here, she's primary 6, secondary 5, or it's primary 6, secondary 3, tertiary 5. And with a primary 6, how come she's got nothing that's completely satisfied? That's giving me a clue that she's showing to the world a happy face, and inside she's not happy. You guys with me? It's tricky, right? So you can say something like, and anytime it's primary 4, primary 5, primary 6, if they do not have any completely satisfieds, the curious question might be around, you know, I'm wondering how often you feel like you have to put on a face sometimes, even when you don't feel good or are stressing or feeling depressed and don't want to show the world. They'll be like, oh my God, I do that. And now they're like, how do you know that? You see what I'm saying? So this is huge information. Now, while we're on the subject, this was my other tip, is that what I see students do is not use the satisfaction survey. We forget it's there, and the client has completely forgotten it's there. But it is chock full of information here. So when we see the very dissatisfied, and in my sample client here, she's very dissatisfied with intimate relationships, number 75, personal freedom, number 77, yeah, and then work-life balance, number 81. So what do we know about her? What we know about her, obviously, either she's in a relationship she doesn't like, or she's not in a relationship and upset about it. But there's also this almost like maybe she's working all the time, and maybe that's why she doesn't have an intimate relationship. So all of a sudden, get that curiosity kicked up. This is what you want to ask about. And for anything that's going on catabolically for her, and we can go back up and visit, it's likely around these 3 topics. Intimate relationships, I'm going to jot those down so we can scroll back up. Intimate relationship, personal freedom, and work-life balance. So now let's scroll. Let's scroll back up to level 1. Let's see what's going on for her in her level 1. So now she's feeling guilty about something, and she's avoiding decisions when she's not sure what to do. It could be around these things in the satisfaction survey. So it might sound something like, you know, it shows that when you're stressed, you'll tend to, you know, kind of go into guilt where you might be judging yourself. And I'm going to guess that that's around this topic of intimate relationships. You know, what are you judging yourself about with that? And what's going on there? And they'll be like, how do you even know that? Because they have forgotten that they filled out the satisfaction survey. Or it might be, you know, she's got a little avoidance theme. Number 22 is somewhat true. I avoid confrontation. Along with number 57, avoiding decisions. Those are both avoidance questions. So now we can ask, you know, I'm wondering what you're avoiding in your life right now. What's going on with your significant other or lack thereof? Because I'm going to guess you're not happy with that situation at all, and you've been avoiding dealing with it. And they're like, oh my God, how do you know that? You see, so we can do some cool things here with it. Now, the other 2 in the satisfaction survey were personal freedom and work-life balance. So we already know this person is working hard. They probably don't have time for a relationship. They might be avoiding dealing with that work schedule. So you could say something around that. You know, what are you avoiding in terms of, you know, working on your work-life balance, or, you know, that feeling of freedom? I'm going to guess that you're working pretty hard and you feel locked into something. What is it? Something like that. Okay. So curious questions always around that satisfaction survey. All right. So while we're in this screen sharing thing, let me see if there's something else that we might utilize here. And I'm trying to access my notes here so I can, which I can't, of course, do. How do I do this? Sorry, hold on a second while I access some Wow.
You can minimize your overall screen to get to your desktop.
You're the best. Oh my gosh. Thanks, Greg. Wow. Okay. I'm trying to, it just minimized my view of your screen. Yeah, I do know how to do this stuff, you guys. I don't know what, okay, whatever. I'm going off the top of my head, honey. All right, so whatever, I can't do it. So it's all good. Okay, so I covered using the tertiary level. I covered the satisfaction survey. I covered a couple shortcuts. While we're in this screen, let's look at I want to share with you just quick judgment questions that are a nice little shortcut. So Greg, if you would scroll to level 5, we have judgment questions really in all the levels. Honestly, there's at least one judgment question in all the levels, which is kind of cool. But I'm just going to share with you right now, the ones in level 5, there's 3 of them. And what is important about them is that, a lot of times what we'll see is that people judge judgment. So they want to be seen as non-judgmental, and they're going to say they're non-judgmental. So the questions around judgment in level 5, the biggie is number 54, I judge the people around me. Now in this case, my client here said completely true. That's what's missing, right? It's the short bar. Gives me a ton of information. Okay, she's judging, but she's also acknowledging that she's judging. That tells me she's aware of her judgment. Now let's look at the other judgment question is level 5, number 5. I don't judge things as being right or wrong, good or bad. That's judging situations. In general, what you're going to start to see in your ELIs is that people are much more comfortable saying they judge situations than judging people. So we don't see it here, but often I'll see that bar will be longer. That number 54, I judge the people around me, will be like completely untrue or somewhat untrue. The bar is going to be longer because it's a negatively keyed question, right? So Greg, if you would just hold your cursor out to like the very true level, where, yeah, like there or in a little bit, normally we would say, if they were really not judging, the bar would be out really far. Okay. Same thing with level 5, number 5. So I judge the people around me. So if there's a difference between the two, then that gives you a clue. Oh, they're comfortable saying they're judging situations, but not comfortable saying that they judge people. So a lot of times you'll see one is shorter than the other. So in this, I don't judge things as being right or wrong, good or bad. They'll say, whatever we have here, completely true, right? So if they say, I don't judge things, and it's untrue, it means they judge things, right? But generally we'll see this other bar longer, number 54, I judge the people around me. Because it's going to say, completely untrue. I got those backwards. Anyway, so you'll see the difference. But let's go into level 7 now, because that's where it's really going to show up. So in level 7, the big judgment question is number, 70. I am non-judgmental. That's an ownership statement. I am non-judgmental. She said completely untrue, but most people will say somewhat true, somewhat untrue, somewhat true, and the bar gets longer as it goes out. Completely true, right? So Greg, if you just put your cursor out a little bit longer, yeah. Let's say they say completely true, I'm non-judgmental, but guess what? Go up to number 14. You'll see, I see only perfection in others, completely untrue. Look at the difference between those. So put a little bar next to completely untrue there, Greg, so that they can see the difference between, yeah. So they are secretly judging, because you can't say that you don't see perfection in others and also say that you're non-judgmental. Does that make sense, right? So we caught them. And in my head, I think of it as they're a non-judgment wannabe. They want to be seen as non-judgment. We all do. We all want people to like us, and we all want to look good, right? And so this is where the way that I'm going to bring this up in the ELI is say, yeah, so, one of the things that looks like, might be blocking you is this topic of judgment. And it showed in the ELI that, judgment came up, and you got to kind of soften it a little bit. And that you might be judging yourself for judging a little bit, or viewing judgment as bad. And then you can validate them. It's perfectly normal to judge. It's something that we do. It's how we get around in the world. It's how we understand our world. But what I saw in the assessment was a discrepancy between you saying you're non-judgmental, but really then having some judgment about people. And that's okay. We just want to shine a light on it and look at it so that we make sure that judgment isn't secretly holding you back. Because, if you're having a quiet thought about secretly judging someone, that energy is going to come through and it's going to hold you back. So something like that. Now, the third judgment question in level 7 is the situational judgment, number 21. Things. The world is perfect just the way it is. She said completely true. That's unusual. Most people will say completely untrue, somewhat untrue, as a shorter bar, because they're viewing the world as totally messed up and needing help. That's judgment. So those are some little tricks there. So now you can play those off against each other. Look at the level 5 judgment questions and look at the level 7 judgment and see how it mixes together. And then anytime I'm talking about judgment, I just always make sure I'm validating them. It's normal to judge others. It's what we've learned from a very young age. And sometimes we reflexively judge something as good or bad without giving it the benefit of the doubt, including ourselves. Because that's the other thing, is they might be judging themselves. So let me show you another little trick, how to know. But anytime they're judging themselves. But the little trick is, Greg, if you scroll to level 1, it's number 29, the self-esteem question. Yeah. Number 29, I feel like I'm lost in the crowd, okay? That's a self-esteem question. If you're lost in the crowd and you don't know your own identity, you don't understand your value, you don't see your gifts, and you're probably criticizing yourself and judging yourself. So if you ever see that, you absolutely go to those judgment questions and make sure that you're checking, and are they judging themselves about judging? And you can kind of have fun with that a little bit and say, it's funny, like not only do we love to judge other people, but we do end up judging ourselves, and then we judge ourselves for judging. You can play with it a little bit. It doesn't have to be this horrible thing that we're judging, okay? All right, so let me just check in and see how we're doing with questions. Somebody asked, please repeat the 3 tips questions. Oh, shoot, I don't remember what it was. Okay. I don't remember. Greg, do you remember?
No, but you know what? This is recorded, and everybody's going to get a link to the recording, so you can go back and catch it.
I think you meant that the 3 tips I was going to give was, are your debriefs taking too long? And I reviewed some of the shortcuts, which included looking at the tertiary level, and then that's information, and also looking at the interplay between these questions a little bit, and looking at the satisfaction survey so that you're getting more information into one thing. The other question was, God, it's on the promo thing. I wish I could shrink my Zoom screen. For whatever reason, it will not let me do it. Okay, so, is that it? I don't know. Anyway, it's make sure that you're using the satisfaction survey. Make sure that you're using a tertiary level in both the energetic profile and the energetic stress reaction. And then, what was my other one? You guys have to go back and look. sorry, I can't access it. This is so insane. I can't even move the window. It won't let me move my
Barb,
window or anything.
Press the escape key on your keyboard.
Oh, you're the best. Oh my God, you guys are so smart. Okay, it's a miracle I can get through a day. Okay, you're fantastic. All right, great. So the main things are, getting the depth of information, feeling like your debrief is too impersonal. So that's what we're doing here. We're making it personal to them by using the satisfaction survey, by using the tertiary level. That's making it personalized for them. Getting that depth is looking at how questions, I gave you a bunch there to bounce against each other. And that's what's really gonna help, using that satisfaction survey. And then looking at what's missing in the anabolic levels. That's gonna help you get greater depth of information too. And that's what the example I gave was, that level 3, number 52, of a short bar in forgiveness tells you that there's forgiveness going on. So there's so much here. I mean, we could go on and on, but the main thing is that, it's using levels 1 and 2, looking at the ratio, adding up the percentages. These are just different ways to articulate it with the client, okay? So let's open it up to some other questions. Greg, if you can pull up, if there's in the chat room there.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, of course, I can't find my Zoom screen at all, because it's just fun over here.
Yeah, I don't know where we left off, but it's a lot of combos that, you're just talking about, and we could spend hours going through all of these different level scenarios, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
here's
some.
an interesting one from Lisa. People think intimate relationships as romantic, but not everyone. Should we ask that?
Yes, absolutely ask that, because that's more information. So how do you define an intimate relationship? Because it showed up in the survey that XYZ, you seem very dissatisfied. Because it might be that the intimate relationship is their best friend or their sister or their mother or whatever, Absolutely. Yes, that's a great, curious question.
Can you address, this is from Jody. Oh, Jody Buckles, one of our newest coaches. Welcome. I'm glad you're on here. So she's asking if you could address the negatively scored or marked questions.
I can. That's, again, the same thing that the main thing to remember is to look for the longest bars in any level, and the longest bars are showing that level the most. So if we are in the sample report, in level 1, for example, and Greg, if you want to put that up.
Okay, hold on, sharing my screen.
Just remember that this is a visual report for you that iPEC designed. So it's just that they reversed the questioning to go opposite to whether the level is catabolic or anabolic.
Okay, where did you want me to go?
Go to level 1 in the sample report.
Mm-hmm.
So a negatively keyed question means that it goes opposite to, and I can't see what you're doing because it only lets me see people's faces. I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
Oh, now I gotcha. Okay, I don't know how to make this window big. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wow, this is really bizarre. I mean, it is like the tiniest little screen. I don't know how to, I don't get it, why I can't make the screen bigger. Okay, so anyway, go to level 1. And in the negatively keyed, number 36, I feel fully capable of creating the success I desire. That's the exact opposite of level 1 sentiment. So what they've done is just simply reverse the words on the ends of the bars. So you can see there that my client here has a very short bar. And that means that she has no level 1 energy around the subject of creating success for herself. But if you look, the bar itself is labeled, the short bar is completely true. It's short because there's no level 1 energy for her. If it was long, she'd have a lot of long energy there, okay? She'd have more level 1 energy there. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I can't see. I mean, this is the most bizarre thing that I can't see. What the heck? It's like, oh, yay, I found it. Okay. God,
Now,
guys, I'm sorry for my technical prowess.
no, it's okay. You're doing fine. I have to stop sharing my screen to go back into the chat, though. So,
Okay.
Hold on. All right. So there we go. Jamie just, she's been with us since I started the Helping Hand. Jamie, welcome. And she just made something that made total sense. I'm trying to find what she said.
Okay.
She said, so basically, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. Was her observation. Please explain we talked about the reverse key. You haven't mentioned the average resonating level.
Oh yeah, sure. Let's talk about that. Woohoo! Forget about it. Okay, forget about it.
It doesn't get any more simple.
Yeah. I like to joke that it's useless. Of course, it's not useless, but its primary purpose is for data, for iPEC. It's for data for you and the client, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And it's the data for when they were to take, if they're ever to take the assessment again, which would show if their average resonating level went up or down. And this is why I spend literally one sentence on it with the client. And I say, and it shows at the bottom there, your ARL, which is your average resonating level, is 3.2. All this tells us is that you will tend to operate, in general, all your energies come together to create this average. So I tell them all the energetic profile energy plus the energetic stress reaction gets thrown into a blender, and the average that comes out is 3.1. And what we do know from our data is that the average person out there generally is at around between 2.9 and 3.1 in their average resonating level of energy about the world. But that doesn't tell you how you're going to be reacting on a certain day about a certain thing. And it doesn't mean you're stuck in that level, that you're operating from level 3 all the time. You could have a primary level 5, secondary level 6, tertiary level 4, and come out still at 3.5 because maybe your energetic stress reaction was low. Mm-hmm. So that's really more like a data point for us if you were ever to take the assessment again. And then I move on because it really, we're not going to coach around it. We're not going to, do anything like that with it. It doesn't really help it. In my client example, her average resonating level was 3.56. What does that tell me? That tells me that even though she's at primary 6, that she's in the higher range of level 3, but that doesn't mean she's operating in level 3 all the time. That's why it's confusing, and that's why I don't use it. So don't get too caught up in that. I just say that it's a data point in our research, and if you were ever to take the assessment again, we could compare what the average resonating level is.
Awesome. And Jan had another great question. I think a lot of people are wondering, how long are you taking to do your debriefs?
Yeah, great question. I prep my debriefs. Now it takes me only about 20 minutes. I prep the whole thing or a half an hour. I literally pre-write it. And my structure, I don't review the 7 levels at all, because what I found was my clients were totally disengaged. This is, it's like an educational talking at them that did not feel comfortable to me. So that was one of the biggest reworks for me that I did. I create something called the Big Who statement. That's something I teach in my class. And in the Big Who statement, you are starting right off the bat with this really powerful statement about their gifts, about their potential, about their thing. And people cry when they hear this big who statement. And then I go into what it is. So, further information, but I instruct them to read the entire report to really familiarize themselves with the levels. And then in my reporting, I use the language. I don't say, oh, that's really level 2 or whatever. I'm using the words rather than, I'm not getting too much into the levels that at that point. Or I might say, that's typically what we see with level 2, anger, resentment, resistance, so that I'm educating a little bit as I go. And then I'll do the education in the next coaching session. And that I'm going to cover that with you guys in the next talk we're doing next week, where I'm going to share with you. Friday, yes.
Yes.
Where I'm going to share with you a chart that I created that I teach the clients the 7 levels and how to use them, how to recognize them, and how to make a change between the levels. It's really cool. So I'm going to share that with you as well. So that's why I don't review the levels. So anyway, I'm prepping this whole thing, and it kind of comes out like a story, and I'm sprinkling in questions so that it's very interactive, obviously, with the client. And then by the end, if it's a potential client, by the end, they're so hooked in, because I'm asking them, so how true is that? They're like, yes, that's so true. How do you know all this? That they're saying yes, they don't even care how much the coaching costs. So it can be pretty powerful that way. So I hope that answered your question. So I don't know, half hour, I would take time, absolutely, to look at those questions and dig in and see what information you can glean.
Great. Awesome. And then this is another great question from Denise, and I think this will be our last question. She's saying, how do you stay out of the weeds when you're doing your debrief? Because she's finding herself doing more coaching than she really wants to.
Oh, yeah. That's a very natural thing to do. We coaches love to coach. We're good at it, right?
That's what we do.
Very natural. And so this is where I'm going to ask you, I have a little homework assignment for you specifically, which is to check yourself, notice that feeling, and ask yourself to put a pause button on it and to keep going. And the words that you can say to the client are, wow, this is really great information that we're pulling up from the assessment. And I'm making a note that that's something that we can further explore in coaching. And that's your sentence every time. Oh, and that's another good, okay. Yeah, you're feeling resentful about your husband not doing the laundry. You know what? That's absolutely something that we can cover in coaching. Let's write that down, so that you're resisting that urge to get down in it. Remember that the ELI, the purpose of it, is an exploratory mirror for them to see themselves. We're not going to give them all the answers, and they're not going to give themselves all the answers. There's no time for that. So it's setting up a baseline of information. We're going to get 3 to 5 key points. So at the end, you're going to ask them, so what are your biggest takeaways from this hour that we've spent together, or this 45 minutes that we've spent together? Boom, boom, boom. But you have an idea of what your takeaways are. You might go, wow, judgment was a big one. Discomfort with anger. You might go, too much tolerating. And then you also might add some anabolic ones like, wow, you're showing this ability to really connect with people. Let's leverage that even more. So what are the things you can leverage more now that you've become more aware of them? So you're getting those takeaways at the end, and that gives you the launch pad to go into the coaching. Does that answer your question?
Well, we'll find out. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, yeah.
So you know what? You did awesome, because we're just wrapping up we have 4 minutes left. So let's talk about your offer, and let's talk about how they can reach out to you.
Oh, great. Oh, you're so sweet. Okay. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, because if somebody has another question, so I'll do it in 1 minute, and then we have 3 minutes to answer more questions.
Awesome.
So this is I do this class called The Art of the ELI, which came out of my own frustration And what I do is give you a very structured way to analyze the debrief and have the questions. You get a debrief form, that's your main form where you're writing out the top 3 and all that good stuff. I'm going to teach you how to create a big who statement to lead. And then we're going to talk about some other formulas that you use automatically in the opening, in the middle, and in the close. And then I give you something called an energy analysis sheet that gives you the format to look and bounce around to different questions. You get like a 20-page guide for all the steps to do this with all the questions and what they mean and which questions pair with other questions, both in that level and in other levels. It's really, it's $400. That's the price of one ELI, and you're going to close on these clients so much easier, and it's so worth it to do it. This is just what people are telling me. Anyway, but I would love to be able to share that with you. My email is barb@freshcompanycc.com. That's C like Charlie, C like Charlie.com. So barb@freshcompanycc.com. I'll post it in the Facebook group for you. Please email me. I can send you information about it. And, if you want to sign up, great. And we'll go from there.
Yeah, Barb, didn't you say that your next class is actually getting ready to go? Do you have room in that class for people?
I do have room in that class. And anybody who signs up with me in the next 48 hours, you're going to get a $50 discount because you're in this group with Greg right now. So it's $350 for you. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So
thank you.
Yeah. And Greg, I just really appreciate what you're doing, helping hands. It's incredible. That's how we get better as coaches, is practice. So
yes, practice makes perfect.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Right.
So we have time for another question. I'm happy to use it.
Pop any questions you have, go ahead and just throw them into the chat, and we'll try and get Barb to answer that in the last few minutes. Oh, is the class one session?
Oh, great question. The class is a 2.5-hour session on Zoom. Then you get a follow-up 6 weeks later with a 1-hour Q&A. And then you are invited to repeat that class anytime for free, because I debrief different people. So you're getting different combinations that you get to see what it turns out like. And the first hour of that class, I'm doing the live debrief. So you can hear the language, see what I'm doing. The second half is how I break down how I got everything I got.
Okay. Somebody said the screen froze while you're talking about your offer. So in the Reader's Digest version for participants today, and that's why I was encouraging your live attendance, Barb is generously offering a course at a $50 discount if you sign up within the next 48 hours, because her course is getting ready to start like next week.
March 20th.
Right? March
yep,
20th.
The evening of March 20th.
Yeah, so for $350, we can get in on this class. So if you're serious about getting your arms around the ELI Debrief and doing away with this clunky hour-and-a-half long nothing, you need to sign up. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
So
and know that, and if you cannot make the class live, like Greg, I know you're on Italy time. I send a recording the next day, so you can just have it and do it, and you'll get the recording anyway. So yeah.
Okay, and then somebody says, "Are you still doing cartwheels? I miss you." That's from Sandy.
Oh my God, who is that? Yes,
Sandy.
Yes, I am. Do you want me to do one right now? No, I'm kidding.
You should. No, I'm kidding. You might knock over some nice furniture.
We don't want to do that.
Awesome. Okay, let's see. You rock. You rock. What time is the class on the 20th?
Oh, 6 o'clock.
Okay, 6 p.m. Your time?
Central time. Goes to 8:30.
Yeah. So that's awesome. And remember, folks, there's flexibility because a lot of you have tight schedules. So you get the recording so you can actually watch it on your own time if you can't make the live class. So that's even more awesome. I love that flexibility.
Yeah.
Barb, no more questions. And
okay.
woo, we did it in an hour and a half. Real quick, before everybody jumps off or whatever, Friday's talk is going to center around what?
Yeah, energy leadership itself. So again, talking more about these energy levels, coaching using these energy levels. What are the best ways that we can help our clients with these energy levels, educate them? You know, I could even talk about using it in the corporate setting, because I do a lot of like one-day trainings. I charge $15,000 for one-day training. So the information is so good, and they gobble it up, and you can utilize that to create trainings for corporations. So, you know, just helping them understand themselves better. So it's, yeah.
Okay, for everybody that's asking, I am going to not only post the information about Barb's class in our Facebook group, but I'm going to send an email out to the whole tribe because I know not everybody's on Facebook. So you will get all of this information one way or the other, and I'm going to send it out tonight when I get back to the hacienda.
All right. Oh, I'm so glad everybody could join, and
me too.
It was so nice to see your faces.
You were amazing, Barb. I can't thank you enough for supporting what I'm doing with the Helping Hand and all these awesome iPEC coaches. And thanks for taking 90 minutes out of your schedule to make us better.
Oh my gosh, you are so welcome. It was my pleasure. I thoroughly enjoyed it. You guys, thanks for being, you know, participating. You know how much that means to any facilitator. Love it. Thank you.
Awesome. We'll see you on Friday.
Yay.
Bye, everybody. Thanks,
Bye.
Barb.
Bye.